Hello, and welcome to the third event of the ATA football series. I am Heather O'Reilly, and I'll be your host today. And I'm joined by two fellow Olympians from past and present. And guys, I think we cover all the Olympics, so we'll get back to that shortly. We'll be chatting about Tokyo 2020, our past experiences in the Olympic Games. Ria, of course, you can give us the present tense on that. We'll be talking women's national team. We'll give our predictions for the final, and we'll talk about a little bit of the current status of women's football. So please join me in welcoming Brandi Chastain and Ria Percival, longtime members of their respective national teams, USA and New Zealand. Guys, welcome. Thanks for being here.
Good afternoon, good evening, whatever it is.
There's a lot of time zones in this video. Brandi, why don't you give the viewers a little bit of a recap about yourself, specifically your Olympic career?
Sure. So I have been a part of 3 Olympics, starting with the very first in the 1996 Atlanta Games, which was oh so exciting, not only to be a part of the first ever team to play in the Olympics, but I think to have it in your home country was incredible. So, winning the gold medal at home, just seeing the preview of what women's soccer could and would look like going forward was tremendous. I think looking back, we all can say, wow, something really amazing happened that night in Sanford, Georgia, at the University of Georgia football stadium. And I don't know if we really truly understood the impact that it would make going forward. So that was really remarkable. The next was 2000 in Sydney, which was amazing as well. Australia is a beautiful country. They were great and gracious hosts. And it was a wonderful football tournament. And then 2004 in Greece, which is the home of the Olympics and the Olympiad. So that was another historical time. And, again, the completion of a group of women who had played together for about 17 to 20 years was coming to an end at that Olympic Games. So all very historical, all very meaningful in their own right.
And Ria, welcome. You are a current Olympian, so congratulations for taking part in Tokyo. Brandi, of course, is an American legend, but for any American viewers listening to this, why don't you give a little bit of a rundown of your long and storied Olympic career?
Yep. So thanks for having me. It's great to be here. So I kind of started my journey and played my first Olympics 2007 in China. And then I played in 4 Olympic Games altogether. So 2012, 2016, and obviously the current Tokyo 2020 Olympics. For me, it's probably been quite a different journey with kind of my background as a national team. We're quite a small nation. So for every Olympics, it's a great opportunity for us, but also just to kind of see the level of other national teams and kind of how far they've come now. Like moving forward into this Olympics has probably been the most competitive that I've seen in women's football. And for me, it's exciting now to see kind of where women's football is going to go into the future.
Excellent. Well, we're so happy to hear from you and hear about what Tokyo was like on the ground there. But between the 3 of us, I think, unless somebody proves my math wrong, we have all the Olympics that women's football has been part of covered. I'm wearing my credential from 2008 Beijing to prove that I was indeed there. So we could have just brought on Formiga, I think, and that would have probably saved a dime for ATA football because she could have talked about all of them as well. But hence here we are, all 3 of us. Okay, so let's talk about this current Olympic Games. Brandi, I'm going to hit you first. I guess what are your thoughts generally on the football? Any teams that have impressed you, I suppose? And then specifically, what have you made from the U.S. team's performance in this tournament?
Well, I think number one is Ria spoke it just a second ago, which is the high level of women's football. I feel like globally it's truly improved. Sometimes the score doesn't quite show the quality. I think you look at a team like Zambia scoring multiple goals in this Olympic Games, and that tells you that there is tremendous potential in the world in women's football, and we're scratching the surface of the greatness that is around the globe. So that's very exciting. I think Sweden has been the class of the tournament without question. The first game just, I think, set a pace that was almost undeniable to their ascension to the gold medal match. Just the quality and the awareness and the connection of the players was really fun to watch. It was devastating to my heart to watch in the first match, but I think it was a good wake-up call, I thought, and it was wonderful for fans of the Olympics who were paying attention. So, and I think it's a standard that we all have to think about. How is it that we want to coach our teams? We want to manage our teams. We want to play our games. We want to maybe create our game models after whatever it is. So it's been exciting, and I'm really looking forward to the last two games.
Yeah, I'm sure just like you, Brandi. I mean, I thought that was going to be a wake up for the U.S. team, a bit of a gut punch that would spur them on the rest of the tournament, and then they did not really get there. And Ria, you were on the ground for that group. It was Group G, wasn't it? That's what you guys were called.
The pool of death, more like, yeah.
How was it Group D if there was only a few groups?
Because I think it goes men's soccer to women's soccer. I think.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Okay. Well, Ria, why don't you tell us a little bit, your feelings when you got put in that group? How did you feel like New Zealand performed, and has the tournament gone the way that you would have expected it?
Yeah, I think there was many challenges leading into the tournament. And obviously when the draw finally got done, it was like, for some reason, we always seem to get the US. And obviously the big name, the history and everything about it, it's always good for us. And it's always something that I've enjoyed doing, is playing with against one of the best teams in women's football. And for me, getting into that pool, we did have a really tough pool. And Brandi said, Sweden are just, I think, at a different level right now, and no one can really touch them. The depth of their players and kind of what they got coming through, they're looking really strong. But yeah, for us, I mean, every game was pretty tough. And for us, our lead up to this Olympics was probably our toughest out of all the teams, which really didn't help us. But yeah, I think the opening game with US and Sweden, we were actually at the stadium because we were playing after them, and just seeing it was like a shock, I think, to all of us. And I think to every team watching the tournament was like, Sweden have come out here, and I think that kind of put US a bit on the back foot. And like you say, I don't think they've really been able to find their stride and kind of find who they are this tournament, which I know they've all been disappointed in.
So besides Sweden, though, any other highlights of the tournament? Any other standout players, standout teams that you guys have been surprised by, perhaps?
I think also Australia have kind of, the opening game against us was, I don't think we were at our best, and they were finding their feet, and they've just, I think, grown in every single game, and especially for this latest game, that they gave everything, and the match really could have gone either way. But yeah, I think that they're another team that have really done well this tournament and stood out.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Our neighbors to the north in Canada have, been less than what I think people would hope for in terms of a rivalry, right? But I've slowly watched that team progress and grow, and the players get experience, and whether that be playing collegiate soccer or football in America and going back to their national team and really making a difference. So, I mean, the toughest thing in football is scoring goals. Let's be honest. It's very difficult. So for them to be in the position they're in and not score, a plethora of goals means that they've got something else that's really remarkable, which is a good defensive plan and a commitment to the hard stuff, because that's the gritty, get yourself dirty kind of area of football. So I have to tip my hat to Canada, as I think that they've really done the job that needed to be done, and they got the results that they needed. And I also agree with Ria that Australia has been fun to watch, and that's been an emerging country as well. I unfortunately I'm really disappointed in the late game red card, because you're going to lose the game 1-0, you're going to lose the game 2-0. Why get yourself into that situation? And now you don't get to play in that game. So I think that was a really naive, very immature decision by a good player that, unfortunately will be sitting on the sideline and maybe for the rest of her life thinking, why the hell did I do that? But that's football, right? It's emotional, and and that's why we love it. So it's been fun. It's been really fun to watch.
Well, excellent. Well, Ria, I'm sure that New Zealand and Australia will be looking to build a little bit of momentum going in to the World Cup in 2023. So, Brandi, U.S. team. I mean, we have to talk about it. Did the coaching staff get things right leading up to the Olympics? Did they get it right during the tournament? And we're going to hear a clip from Megan Rapinoe shortly. But before that, why don't you just give us just some initial thoughts? I know everybody's scratching their head right now, and it's really difficult to decipher what went wrong for the U.S.
Well, both of us are in a coaching course right now, and I think one thing we learn in this coaching course is that it's easy to analyze something from your own perspective, your own seat. But if you don't know what the game plan is, if you don't know what their game model is, it's really difficult to truly pick apart, is it working or is it not working? Now, we can see from the outside, from a 40,000 foot perspective, that, okay, we didn't win the games the way we wanted to. We didn't look like we were playing well, but we don't know if they're fulfilling the ask of the coach. So that's a really hard one. It's not the way I saw it going. It's not the way I like it to be. So from my own perspective, it was a mess. It was a mess. And, you have too many players that have too much experience for it to be as discombobulated as it was. Now, you asked about the lead up. I think the lead up is the question, because, we supposedly have someone who understands sports science and load and mileage. And then we get to the tournament and we're talking about rotating lineups. It's like, what are we doing? Like, we should have been managing that before getting to the most important tournament of 2 years time. So I feel like that might have been not a great, maybe the outcomes of the load they were carrying prior to the Olympics was maybe not managed the way it should have been. Again, this is from the outside looking in, but if I look back on all the teams I played on, it wasn't a rotation of lineups to manage load. It was put your best 11 players on the field and you win the games. And for me, and you win them in a good fashion with a proactive, positive, aggressive, assertive, confident mentality.
Yeah. Well, you know what, Brandi? I think maybe the 5 substitutions actually made choices a little bit more confusing for Vlatko and Danovsky, maybe including the alternates in the group of 22, then gave you more options. And maybe we would have been better off just playing 13, 14, 15 players like we usually do and calling it a day.
That's a good point. I didn't actually think about that, but I think there is a bit of should I not when you're given opportunities to make subs, and because people are always going to question, well, you didn't use them all, or you used too many.
Brandi, did you watch the Canada game? I know it was 1 a.m. for you. What was your reaction after that match?
Are you kidding me? I don't think I've slept for the last 10 days, or 15 days, or how many ever days. No, I obviously I had a knot in my stomach leading into this game. I have to say that as I watched, I feel for the players. And I think, from a coaching perspective, it was difficult to decide who were the best 11, who were the best 14, who should be coming in at what time. I mean, this takes a lot of time and a lot of calculations. As much as I don't like how much science is involved and data is involved in football, because I honestly believe football's from the heart, and I feel it's an art more than it is science. You have to get those calculations right. And just watching that game, and then Tierna Davidson is from near where I live, and so of course we were all hopeful for her to have a great tournament, and I believe that she's a player for the future for the U.S. team, and so that was a devastating situation. But in my opinion, when I look at it, I'm like, it was naive. Like, she wasn't aware that the player was coming. She should have stood or been in the the running channel of the player, and she probably would have been fouled. Just to play naively in that moment, I think maybe just speaks to just the overall tournament for the U.S. And, that we play these games because we don't know the outcomes before they start. So this is the exciting part about a big tournament.
Ria, you were on the ground, so maybe you have a better read on this. Predictions for the final. Who do you got?
I'm probably going for Sweden at this stage. Like I've said from the get-go, they've kind of been the team to look out for, and every game they've come out, they've been consistent with their performances, and they've shown really the next level of football. So for me, I'm backing Sweden all the way.
They just have too many. They have too many weapons in front of the goal.
Yeah, and it's the same when we obviously played them in the third group game, and at this stage they'd actually rested kind of 8 of their core players, and they were still just the football and the depth I think they have in their team, and the players they have coming through. I think they're just going to keep growing now and kind of keep setting the benchmark for other teams now to catch up and kind of get up to their level.
But if there's someone I would never bet against, it would be Christine Sinclair, because woman.
That's what I was just about to say. I mean,
definitely.
She's just impressed me. She's impressed me her entire career, but what she's done, I think, the last couple of years, 5-6 years, what a capstone this would be for a wonderful career. And I know it's always been difficult for her, right, to be considered the world's best when Canada was never really winning major competitions. So, it would be fantastic to see her capture gold. And I never thought that I would be saying that about Canada. No disrespect. No disrespect, but they have been our rival.
Yeah, I honestly believe that, she's the vessel that's carried their whole organization from the time she put that jersey on, and just her professionalism from a young age until now, and the way, like, watching her come off the game, and the last match, it was like, you could tell that her heart was like, okay, I want to be out there. But I mean, she just physically left everything possible. And, that's what the Olympics are about, right? Like, that's the spirit and the joy that we find in the games. But I feel like, there you go. I feel that the spirit and the joy and the love might not be enough against Sweden. They're just too good in all the right places.
Well, we have a tasty final, as they would say there in England, right, Ria? And Ria, why don't you give us a little bit of perspective from what it was like in Tokyo? Clearly not the Olympic experience, I think, that everybody would have loved, but I guess, there are some positives that the game still went on and athletes got to compete and show everything that they have. So why don't you give us a little bit about that Tokyo experience? Was this a first time that you haven't had your family at big events? And was it bizarre? Did you get to the Olympic Village?
Yeah, so I think the main thing, like I've said to many people, is the whole thing about having fans and family, especially for, like, I'm a big family person, like from New Zealand and our background. It's all about us coming together, and it's in the highs and lows of football and the game, and what we love doing is not having your closest around you, obviously when it is the best time and you are performing, but also kind of when the games are over and you just you want to see your family and you want to be around the people that have helped you get to where you are. And just the fans, like we talk about, sometimes the fans are the 12th person on the pitch, and they're the ones that kind of can carry the team and push the team. And that's a massive thing with the US, is the amount of crowds and support that you get. It just shows that sometimes it can probably carry you through. But it was very different for us because we were in the Olympic Village for 2 games, and we've never been in there for games before. So that was very different. And for me personally, I didn't really like being in there during the games. It's just, I'm used to being in a hotel where you kind of have your own space, your own kind of time away, your own meeting rooms. Whereas in the village, there was, like, we struggled to get meeting rooms. Obviously, we couldn't really hang out as a team and do stuff together because of the COVID and the pandemic. It had probably a bit of a barrier on being able to do those things and really kind of embrace and enjoy kind of the moment being there. But with that being said, I mean, they still worked amazingly. And I mean, the host, Japanese people, and how they host and support is just, you couldn't have really asked for much more. And what they've done around everything, I mean, it was still a fantastic, obviously, experience and one you'll never forget. But yeah, it was just very different not being able to have family and friends.
Yeah, interesting. Interesting that was your experience at the Olympic Village, that it was almost maybe took away from the team aspect, team camaraderie, and team performance. Did you enjoy, though, being around other athletes from around the world, or did it not really feel like that because of, I guess, quarantining and staying
No,
to
I
yourself?
think obviously with the dining hall, it's just one big dining hall. So literally you just go in there and it's literally just the amount of people. We obviously went in before kind of all the athletes and teams had arrived, so it was quite empty. So it went from being like maybe 100 people in the dining hall to like, I don't know, 400 or 500 people. So I just also enjoy, you see the different athletes and just the different, how the physiques of each different athlete, and they're all just so different. So it's just like sometimes you're seeing like 6'5" basketballers and you're like, this is actually like insane. Like, but that's, I think that the cool part is just being able to kind of just see all the different countries and the different athletes and kind of how they go about their day.
Yeah, I agree. I always thought it was so humbling to see athletes from around the world, different body shapes, like you said, different, because it's humbling. I think we get so into football, and it is a big sport across the world. Like, let's be honest, but it's not everything. It's there's many parts of the globe that cherish some other sports. And so I always thought that was one of the coolest things about being part of the Olympics was we're just this small piece of the world game. So why don't we just reflect a little bit, Brandi, and you already did some on your experience there in Atlanta, and then in Australia, and then in Athens. What do you think was your all-time favorite Olympic memory on and off the pitch in those Olympic experiences?
You're asking me to challenge my memory.
Maybe it was the young kid that was on your 2004 team that you taught about post-up play, because in one five-a-side game you were getting so mad at me that I couldn't hold the ball up, and then you just inserted yourself right on up there and said, "Do it like this," and you were a defender. So I don't remember these things.
Did it work? I mean, that was
I think it worked. I think that,
I hope the delivery wasn't too harsh, so apologies if it was. Listen,
harsh or not, we won the Olympic gold medal together, so it was probably decent delivery.
So I would say, thinking back to Atlanta, obviously Tiffany Milbrett scoring, Joy Fawcett running down the right flank and making across the Tiffany Milbrett, and to see that goal go in, like, it gives me chills just talking about it right now. And to be in a stadium with, it was 76,000 plus people who were, as Ria said, when you have your people in the stadium, there's clearly a lift that happens. You're elevated to this new level of like nirvana that you didn't really know would exist. And to hear the cheer of the crowd was truly incredible. I honestly believe the best part of playing football is the connection you have with your teammates. So, I really have to give Ria and her teammates really a lot of credit for what they've had to endure leading up to the Olympics. It was unlike anybody else's journey, being isolated and doing things on your own and not having matches, and then being asked to play in the Olympic Games is like incredible. So I just wanted to put it out into the sphere of everybody's hearing it, Ria. I know it wasn't the Olympics that your team had hoped, and maybe not the outcomes you wanted, but to be there and to be present and to really, give your all is really tremendous. So thank you very much for that. I think everybody respects what you had to do to get there, and then what you did while you were there. So that's really important. And for me, Heather, it's the people. The people are what matter. The results happen because of the trust and the respect and the humility that goes into making great teams. And so
I'm holding a scrapbook that was made for me. This was the 2008 Olympics, actually, in Beijing. But it's so special to flip back, because you do forget. And you forget things that happen on the field. You forget things that happen off the field sometimes, but those are the ones that stick with you.
I mean, this is a picture of my mom, who unfortunately is no longer with us. And just the fact that, you know, having her.
Is that at 96?
That was 99. But, you know, having her be able to, and my dad and my brother, and, you know, just having them there was special. But again, I think it's a really difficult task of a coach to put together not only the best players in a position that they can really do the job, but to fit the pieces of a puzzle, a very unique, very individually talented, with different perspectives, with different opinions, to make the puzzle come together. And so I feel very blessed that we had a run of so long of perfect pieces fitting perfectly together.
Getting it right. And speaking of getting it right, I see some swag in your background now. A couple jerseys. Is that the infamous jersey that you ripped off?
So
and I see some Olympic gear. So do you have any Olympic medals with you there?
So that's the first one ever. You could see it a little shining right there, but hold on.
I will say that every year they got bigger and bigger and bigger, and like the host country's trying to outdo the one before. Beijing was very big. I'm not sure it was.
This is Sydney. Sydney sits
awesome.
Sydney sits next to me because it's a good reminder that, you know, you may not always win the game. But if you've given your absolute best, and, you know, sometimes moments don't work out, but you have to keep working, and you have to give yourself credit sometimes when things aren't perfect. And I know, you know, our USA mentality is always, you know, to win, and I think that's our country's culture. But I honestly look at that and think, you're second in the world. Like, come on, that's pretty damn good.
Very interesting to hear that from you, Brandi, and to learn from failure and not just put your head in the sand and pretend it didn't happen. But I love that you keep that medal next to you there. And how about you, Ria? What about favorite memories on and off the pitch and all your long Olympic experiences?
Yeah, I think it's been probably quite different. Like I say, we always come in kind of probably as the underdogs, as people would say, or a team that's probably not sure where we're seen on the world stage, and it's always been tough. I think one highlight I remember was the 2012 Olympics, of making it out of our group, which we've never done. But awesome. We did play the US, and you knocked us out 2-0. But it's just, obviously, you do all this training, you do all this work, you put the hours in, you put the time in, you obviously have to work on so many things, and I suppose to have that moment, and it's kind of just a good feeling to kind of know that you can do it and it does work for you. And I think we've just got to kind of move forward, like we say, we've got to take this Olympics and take from it what we can, and know that we did kind of lead everything out on the pitch there, and we done all we could have with the circumstances we were in personally. But yeah, like Brandi said, a big massive thing for me is our team. We're like a family, and you kind of probably spend more time with your team than you do your actual family. So for me, yeah, I just see us as a family, and it's no matter how much we're apart, when we're together, it's like we kind of haven't been apart for long. So yeah, it's definitely something that I'll probably miss once I do stop playing and retire. So yeah.
Yeah, you football
start thinking about what you're doing next, because that is, you know, sadly,
that tradition's a doozy, isn't it, Brandi? I'm still in it right now, and I'm like, God,
it's hard.
I miss playing so much. So Ria, we're living vicariously through you, which brings me to the next question. You got another Olympics in you, or what are you thinking? You don't have to, you know, overshare more than you want to, but like I said, Brandi and I are living vicariously through you, being the only one of us three that are still able to compete for the national team. So you got World Cup, Olympics, or what are you thinking?
Yeah, for me, like, I've kind of realized, being 31, I suppose, and I feel kind of I'm in really good shape still, and probably in one of my best shapes of my career. Football wise, obviously playing in the WSL for Tottenham as well. It's a great club, and a club that's moving in a direction that I really want to kind of stay with. And for me, I'm going to play as long as my body will allow me to, because I still love it as much now as when I first started kicking the ball around. So I mean, I definitely want to do the World Cup 2023, being in the home soil. And at this stage, because of obviously the circumstance of this Olympics, I hopefully, if all my body allows everything else, I'd love to do one more Olympic Games.
Very nice. Well, that is good news for all football New Zealand fans and Tottenham fans, for that matter. So it's been an absolute honor to be with you guys both. I mean, I think it's really cool that we have been able to cover each and every Olympic Games that women's soccer has been part of. Now we only have to wait 3 more years, unless something happens, for the next Olympics. So I love Paris. I think it's a beautiful city. So I hope to be there for it. Again, we don't have to wait too long. But thank you to everybody that is watching. I hope that you enjoyed this episode on the At a Football series, and be on the lookout for a few more in the next few weeks.